Okay, why did any of you start coming to California?
Well, you heard of the Dust Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
We were in it. There was no work. Well, we farmed, and it was, the dust and stuff were so bad, the farm would, the wind would dry out and stuff, you know, and it wouldn't let it grow hardly. So, Houston and Hattie came out after Eddie and Nona. And then in 41, Edgar and Elmer and Houston and Lottie came back. Dad got real sick. And the doctor told Mama, says, if you want the kids to see him, you better tell them to come back. So they came back on a bus
To Oklahoma?
to Oklahoma, and they saw how bad he was, and they thought, they had to check with the doctor to see if they thought he could make the trip, and he Oklahoma said he thought he could. So Edgar went to Ada and had sale papers drawn up and mailed them out, and about a week, we had the sale, and we left the next day after the sale because we sold everything we had. Only thing we kept was our clothes when we came to California.
And when you say we, who are you referring to?
Mama and Daddy. And Edgar was still in the service, so he needed to get back. He was at Menor Field. And he and Lottie came back on a bus. And Houston and Elmer drove back with us in the car. There was five grown-ups and a '58 Chevrolet with all the clothes that we had to our name. So you imagine what a crowd what was in.
Were all the brothers in the service at the same time, and if not, who was not in the service?
Houston never did go,
Oh, okay.
but all the rest of us was in at one time.
But he's in a uniform though. Uncle Houston's in a uniform. Because I have it, and I was looking at it last night. That's the picture I have in that thing on the wall, you know, and it has Uncle Edgar and you, no, you weren't in it. Uncle Edgar and Uncle Houston were in uniforms, and Uncle Elmer. But Daddy wasn't in a uniform in this picture. And, you know, and then the wives and us kids. So Uncle Houston did have on a uniform in that picture.
Well, I never knew he was in service.
Yeah.
It hadn't been in service while I was overseas.
Was Uncle Eddie in the service?
Uncle Eddie was in service. He stayed overseas the longest of any of us. See, Elmer and Eddie and me all went overseas.
And where'd you go? Philippines?
I went to the Philippines, Elmer went to the Philippines, and then he went to Japan. I thought that I was going to get to catch up with him in the Philippines when I found out I was going to the Philippines. And when I got there, I wrote back for his address and everything, and Mama wrote me a letter that said he had been shipped to Japan. So I just missed him by a month or so.
Uncle Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie was in England over in that period. Now, he was in, he was there in about 3 years, I believe, in service.
Now, were you and Daddy in the same group?
No, no, see, he went in about 43, 44. I didn't go in until 45.
And were you all in the Army? All of you?
Yeah. Elmer, Edgar and Eddie was in the Air Force. Elmer was in the Army, and I was in the Army.
So you went in after the war was over?
I was finishing my training, we was waiting on troop train to pick us up when the morning that they announced the news that the
D-Day.
war, Japan had signed the treaty.
Oh, my.
Mhm.
So they still needed to replace, you know, the veterans that was there. And so they went ahead and shipped us over. And we were supposed to have landed in Leyte when we left the United States. We got there and there was little boats, a couple of officers came out and got on board and stayed about an hour, and they got out and got in their little boat and drove back to shore. And we started on the way again, and about, I think it was late that evening, they finally told us that we were going to the Philippines, Manila, Philippines. So that's where I spent my time.
Can I ask?
Okay, I know the Dust Bowl, that it was very dusty. What really instigated the whole move out here?
Well, people just couldn't make a living back there.
Okay,
See, I was right after the Depression, coming out of the Depression, and you just couldn't make a living.
so how did Uncle Edgar get land? How did he come up with enough money to buy land?
Here,
Yeah,
working and saving.
really.
They worked and saved and worked and saved and worked and saved. And they bought 2 acres across from Fannin Station with a little house on it. And they lived in that several years. Little, seemed like 2 rooms. And then they got enough money to, well, he planted that 2 acres in potatoes. And made a little money off of that for a year or two. And then they bought the 20 acres out on the highway. And there was a 3-room house out there. There's a living room, bedroom, and then a kitchen. You just go through one room into the other. And they lived in that, several years. Now, they were in the service when he was out there, when they first bought out there. And he was a cook, and he would work 2 days on and 2 days off, 2 days on, 2 days off. So he was able to farm, and Alpha did the watering, most of the watering and stuff, and he was home to do the plowing and stuff on his days off. And they did pretty well because potatoes were a real good price back then. Then he bought the 40 acres right west of the house there, right close to the cemetery there. He had it rented for a long time from the land company. He finally talked him into selling it to him. And he raised potatoes off of that first time. Usually planting potatoes, you don't plant them on new ground because there's alkali in this ground to begin with. And so he went ahead and planted anyway. And they told him that he wouldn't raise any potatoes. But it's kind of funny. Got those potatoes started coming up, and you could tell where the alkali spots, they'd be about, just so high, and the others would be up nice big. Well, he got a couple of garden plows, push garden plows, put a sweep on it. And on my days off, I was working in the oil field. On my days off, I would help him. And we'd go out there and run through those, where the potatoes were real small. The alkali, it wouldn't go down and the water would just run right off of that part. And it wouldn't soak in. And it would just cut a little trench in the middle there. And we'd take those garden plows and go down through there and widen that middle out. And that loose dirt would hold the water back. And he made the best potatoes there he ever made in California.
Oh my goodness.
He came out, one day I came out of the field, out there, I drove up to the house, and he came out, and he had potatoes stacked on his arm, just like he's carrying wood. They're big old bakers, and that's, in fact, that's when he bought, built the house over here on Magnolia, off, I think about one potato crop, because he really made the money off there.
Okay, how many brothers worked for him?
Just, well, Elmer worked for him all the time. Eddie worked for him for, I don't know, a year or two or 3 years, I don't remember.
And no other brothers did?
No.